So everyone already back from brief coffee. We have Russ Kelz, who will present us community facility support that NSF released just recently, a couple months ago. And here is, okay, go ahead, Russ.
Well, hello, and thank you for inviting me. I'm Russ Kelz, Program Director, the National Science Foundation, the Division of Earth Sciences, and I co-manage the Instrumentation Facilities Program along with colleagues David Lambert and Luciana Estes. And over the last year or so, we developed a new solicitation, which you're well aware of. And so this talk is not terribly exciting. It's basically regurgitating what I hope is clear in the solicitation language, but maybe I can emphasize a few points and answer any questions. So the solicitation, as Vitaly mentioned, was just recently released, seeking proposals to develop, manage, operate, and support user access to US synchrotron-based analytical capabilities. And it's in support of Earth and environmental sciences. The submission deadline is next March. As I've stated before, we were able to get leadership support and commit some of our own program funds up front to potentially advance the level of support over what's currently funded through both the JESSICARS cooperative agreement, supporting facilities at APS, as well as COMPRESS, supporting facilities across 3 synchrotron flight sources in the United States. So currently the support there is about 5.5, maybe a little less million. So this represents something like a 30% increase in proffered support. And in fact, that's kind of unprecedented in my career. It's very rare that people get these kind of opportunities. So we're hoping that that we can support this for a well-reviewed, strong proposal. And there is a good prognosis this fiscal year coming, fiscal 22. Biden administration had requested a significant increase for NSF. It's yet to be seen whether we'll get all of that, but usually you get something between what the president's request is and zero. So it's a positive. And I think the likelihood's quite good that we'll get a decent bump in our budget in geosciences, earth sciences, and in fact, at the Instrumentation Facilities Program level, which supports both COMPRESS and JESSICARS. So this is a competition for one award. And the eligibility is listed below. I'll just advance to the next slide if I can here. Why can't I advance? Having trouble advancing here. There it goes. Okay. All right. So we're seeking centralized management, both hopefully for efficiencies in managing the human and capital resources, but also efficiencies in NSF oversight, because at present, we manage 2 different proposals, but cooperative agreement awards, and there are some overlapping capabilities, and the reviews of those historically were not contemporaneous in time. So this really presents a way for the earth science community reviewing such a proposal, we hope, to see the entirety of what NSF purports to do in terms of analytical capabilities at synchrotron light sources. I think it goes without saying we want to broaden support for the community. In particular, as we've heard and know, there's a bunch of DOE plans and concrete plans, and as I heard, already broken ground at APS for next generation light sources. So in anticipation of that, we hope to provide support to enable capitalizing on that, as well as also being able to build or start and operating new beam lines. NSLS2 comes to mind as having a lot of opportunity for that. It's also, I guess, worth mentioning, I've heard it before this morning, about this National Academy report called Earth and Time that lists science priority questions essentially for the next decade. And synchrotron science is highlighted, and many of the research applications that we'd like to see addressed will certainly be able to and will take advantage of the unique capabilities at synchrotron light sources in the United States. These days, there's increasing pressure. NSF recognizes full well, and in particular the geosciences, that we've not done a good job as a community in really representing the demographics of the United States population in inclusion in science. So we'd like to see a proposal or proposals, if there's competition there, to encourage such efforts. Also, there's a strong push to the need to be considerate of accessibility, equity, diversity, and inclusion across all facility activities, so staffing, user support, etc. We'd like to preserve those high priority components of the facility portfolio that we all already manage and support. So we're not dropping the ball on that. And as I said before, we'd like to encourage efficiencies, and I hope that that will in fact become the case. And it's also worth noting that periodically we are required, in fact, by National Science Board policy to recompete facilities. So we're meeting a need there as well. So again, I won't read all of these, but end user access, on-site technical support. We'd like to see new developments by evolving capabilities at the light sources. It's important that there be, as much as there can be, understanding that there's light source user programs that dictate some of the overall distribution of beam time. But from our perspective, the needs of NSF Earth Science Division funded research and education has to be highlighted and hopefully prioritized in some way. And we also stress that we'd like to see some new activities in the area of data services. I heard some questions about that this morning, and I was happy to hear that. Education and workforce development need to be an integrated part of any facility proposal. And again, we recognize and thank our partnership with DOE. We are a small player financially in this, but nonetheless, our outlay of support for compress and Jesse cars is something like maybe 40% of our entire facility portfolio in the IF program. So it is a significant chunk, and it's the opportunity is here for it to become more significant. It's also important that any facility, and I've heard some of this discussion, and I've seen it, and in talking to some individuals, that the scientific community be heavily involved in advisory input to whoever ultimately manages this facility. I won't again touch on all of these points. Some of it I think is self-evident. It is maybe worth stressing that advisory committees should be diverse, not just in terms of scientific discipline, hopefully representing the research applications that take advantage, the full research applications that take advantage of synchrotron light sources, but also in terms of the demographics, gender, ethnicity, etc. These are important things, and I hope the community will come together and do their best to address this. Maybe lastly, one of the things we've been doing with our facilities is trying to, over time, standardize the way facilities collect certain types of data on users and report it. Some facilities have done a very good job of this. That certainly includes Jesse Cars and Compress, but we'd like to make it a more standardized reporting and data recordation requirement, and that would be part of any award terms and conditions. So, these are things that would include details on where users are getting their research funding, how much they're spending in order to take advantage of the beam time, and we'd like to see also, a good record of workshop reports, educational activities, and assessments thereof. Brief timeline picture. We sit here in, I guess, quarter 2 of 2021, just about quarter 3. And the proposals are due in March. So we've got about 6 months, a little over 6 months. The nature of this competition and the likely magnitude of the request puts it at a level that internally at NSF requires something called Directors Review Board review. In other words, it is not an immediate conclusion that a program director managing such a proposal and considering an award recommendation is not in a position to do that independently, which is the case with almost all of our awards. This has to go through essentially a higher level adjudication board, which includes the assistant directors of many of the directorates of NSF, maybe physics, biology, etc., chief financial officer, and others. And given their approval, then we get delegated authority to make an award. But the timing of that process, it's quite tedious. There's a lot of back and forth, but it really requires an entire year to culminate. So we would not expect an award until a year out from March 2022. That, of course, results in potential funding lapse for current awards, but it is our intent to provide continuity of operational support during that period, and that can be done easily through NSF instruments. And I've already discussed that with grants and agreements officials, and they see no issues. So that, I think, is about it, but there's a couple summary points, I guess. Again, single lead organizational management. I would expect collaborating institutions to be involved as subawardees. We hope that this provides an opportunity for support of new capabilities. But the capabilities, not all of them need be located specifically at the synchrotrons. I am aware that some currently funded through Compress do not. I think I also want to point out, even though we term this Earth and Environmental Sciences, we kind of stressed environmental geochemistry as something we'd like to see maybe more of an expansion of activities through any facility that we support. But we're really kind of agnostic to the subdisciplines that might benefit, okay? So it could include paleontology as an example with X-ray computed tomography, or other disciplines. So there's no need to think that it's restricted to just earth materials and environmental geochemistry. And of course, once again, just the desire to attempt to do our best as a community to broaden the participation of students and encourage inclusivity. And I think really that's all I have to say, and I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Okay, great. Thank you, Russ, for presentation. And from your presentation, it looks like you encourage to people who submitted proposal to NSF to connect their research with the synchrotrons. Is it right? Can you, for example, say that proposal will be in favor if they require a synchrotron technique to use?
Well, certainly there are research programs that always consider those types of proposals, geophysics probably being the primary in the area of high pressure mineral physics, but also petrology and geochemistry, and environmental geochemistry as well. And there could be other programs across NSF, including other programs and other directorates at NSF. And just because we're providing the support, that does not deny somebody funded through ocean sciences as an example of gaining beam time, as you know, because that's really the policies at the light source level that determines that, and that's fine. You know, that the idea that we wouldn't support, I think, you know, in a fairly, I don't know how to say this, significant way, research in the future that would rely on synchrotrons would be, I think, a fool's errand given the investment that we're prepared to make in the facility capability that allows broadening of access. So, you know, I think the science community will speak to that, right?
Yeah.
NSF responds to proposal pressure. You know, we don't write proposals for you. And we realize that the scientists that are on the front lines doing research, you guys tell us what the best ideas are. We don't always need the National Academy to tell us that, but it does make for a nice glossy booklet, and it kind of frames some of the decisions we make over a longer time scale.
That
so, you know, I
good.
think the news is good.
Yeah, and the only problem I can see here that many disciplines right now, it could be earth related and physics or chemistry related. Sometimes it's very hard to distinguish, so we have to combine. So that kind of like, it's from your point of view, is going to be any problem with that, or?
No, I guess what I would suggest, and I hope I've made this clear, you know, we have supported compressed and Jesse cars, and we know very well what those capabilities are. We'd like to see new capabilities, and we'd like to see the engagement of new communities at a level perhaps that they weren't engaged before. Okay, ultimately, that requires the interests of other communities, but I think you can get it. We have been advertising this through several kind of workshops that have been put together. One was nanoscience conference, I think earlier this month or late last month, and another was a environmental geochemistry focused synchrotron science workshop. So, you know, I would encourage whoever is, you know, coming together, and I know that this is happening at multiple levels, I would encourage as broad a participation as possible. I think NSF would look favorably on, you know, that in terms of including as much advisory input as possible, and, you know, working through whatever process you have to come up with a proposal that fits into the budget that's offered.
Yeah, great. Great, thank you. And Ninat has a question. Ninat, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, hey Russ, nice to see you again. Yeah, so quick question. So you mentioned the budget scope and outline 35 million for 5 years. Is that, the upgrade funding that's needed for some of the facilities, is that under that umbrella, or is there separate funding that, you know?
Well, this is what's on the table. Okay. Now my understanding was, and I've heard multiple times that, you know, maybe this is not the full picture, is that over the last 5 years, we had built in some additional support, at least at Jesse cars, to prepare for the APSU upgrade, right? Because that was known at that time. Now you will have to articulate what other needs that have to happen in order for, you know, timely access to first light when the upgrade's complete. You know, this, whatever the budget is here, that's it. That's what we have. Other possible funding mechanisms exist. There's the Major Research Instrumentation Program at NSF, to which these communities have responded in the past and been funded periodically. And there may be other opportunities. I mean, as I said, the Biden administration seems to be very supportive of science. This could well benefit NSF. So things could be very good, at least for the next couple of years, and then it's somewhat uncertain. So, you know, I think you folks will have to articulate what is absolutely essential in order to take advantage of the new capabilities, first at APS, but out into the future, advanced light source as well. You know, if that need cannot be met within $7 million a year, well, then we'll have to have a discussion about that. Because right now, that's what we have available.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Ross. I think you answered some questions. And if anybody has question to Ross, please type in the chat and hopefully he can answer.